The only people who don't want to disclose the truth are people with something to hide.
It's time for a solid hour of Tea Party Power. And now, here's Janine Garofalo's favorite tea-bagging redneck, Mark Galar.
And my very special guest today is Sheriff Joe Arpaio, the only law enforcement official in the United States willing to take on the issue of Barack Obama's eligibility. Sheriff Joe, welcome to the show.
How are you?
I'm good.
I'm here in sunny Arizona.
Well, I am good. I'm in rainy College Station, Texas today, home of the George Bush Library. Want to let you know that I consider it an honor to have you on my show, and I want to thank you for being the only law enforcement official in the United States with the guts to take on this issue. Why do you think it's just you?
Well, that's a good question. You say I have guts. I'm just doing my job. I spent 50 years in law enforcement, over 26 years with the U.S. Justice Department, the Federal Drug Enforcement Administration, as regional director in Mexico, South America, Turkey. I can go on, and been sheriff it'll be 20 years if I get elected this year for my sixth time. So I've been around. I hope I have some credibility, being with the feds for 30 years. And when I look into this matter, I'm not a kook or other, slanderous words that they call me. Took an oath of office to force all the laws. This came to my attention. The Tea Party, about 250 here in Arizona, Maricopa County, asked me to look at it. I report to them. They're my bosses, so why should I throw it in a wastebasket and not give it a shot and look at it? And we did. But to alleviate all those critics, which they're all over the place anyway, about spending taxpayers' money, I have 3,000 volunteer posse. They can work under the constitutional elected sheriff. I have a cold case posse made up of ex-cops and lawyers. Why not use those resources at no cost to the taxpayers? So this posse has done a great job. We went in there hoping to clear the president for once and for all, prove that he was born in the United States and that birth certificate was not a fraud. But it didn't work out that way. So what am I supposed to do, throw it in a wastebasket? No. We are going to continue the investigation. So I'm just doing what I took an oath of office to do, and I'm not going to back down with all the pressures from and no backing from both political parties. And do what I took the oath of office to do. Very simple. That's the way it's going to be, and we'll see what happens.
Well, I watched the press conference on March 1st with great interest, not so much to see what you were going to say, because, as you know, I narrated and helped produce those videos for Mike Zullo, and I pretty much knew what was going to take place, but I wanted to see the reaction of the media. And this is my observation, Sheriff Joe. I saw you take questions about whether 250 people signing a petition warranted an investigation. I saw people ask you whether you were a Tea Partier. I saw people ask you what your motivation was. What I didn't hear, Sheriff Joe, were people saying, now wait a minute, the control document got 45 layers, but Obama's only had 9? Tell me about that. Wait a minute, you mean you could lift that stamp completely off the document in its entirety and move it around? It didn't get broken up in many layers the way you would have expected? Tell me about that. Or, Sheriff Joe, you mean those pica stamps that the post office uses? They sell the entire year in one block, so they would have bought 1980 all in one rubber block. That only has 80 on it. Now, tell me again why you think that 19 isn't there. I didn't hear one relevant question. I heard a bunch of questions about your motivation, your political views. I didn't hear anything asking about the document.
Isn't that sad? Right now I made national headlines again. Over pink underwear. I make my inmates wear pink underwear. Someone sued, and the appellate court in San Francisco ruled against me over underwear that I've put on the inmates 17 years ago. Wow. They sure talk about that, but they don't talk about this. So this has to be the biggest blackout in history. And, I've dealt with the press all my life. And so I can't understand exactly what you said. Why did they go and ask me? Why did they try to ask me these questions, or Mike Zullo, to discredit our investigation and the facts that we showed them? No. You know why? Because they probably feel it's true. So maybe that's a good thing for us if they're not trying to tear apart our facts. But to not talk about it and to go after the messengers, I wonder why. I have my own idea. But I'll tell you, one time this is going to come out, we're not going to stop, and we're going to keep the investigation going.
Well, speaking of the reporters again, a friend of mine was at the press conference, and her observation, Sheriff Joe, was that before the press conference started, she was sitting amongst the reporters just to see what she could overhear, and they were laughing and joking and saying what a waste of time it all was, and one person even said, yeah, this old sheriff guy thinks he can prove the birth certificate is fake. Yeah, right, let's watch him try. And they were all getting a big chuckle out of it. Her observation was on the way out, they weren't laughing anymore. They weren't chuckling. They didn't look happy. They had frowns on their faces. They had a very stern look on their face. Their eyes were narrowed as they left the press conference room. Her take on that was that they obviously heard some things that they didn't want to hear. Did you make a similar observation, and what are your thoughts on the mood of the press before they...
Yeah, you know, everything is geared to the birth certificate. We came up with another shocking revelation on a selected service card. They weren't ready for that one. So when we put that on a screen, you could hear a needle drop. But once again, where's all the questions? Why didn't they ask us about it?
Yeah. Well, I thought it was interesting, too. One of the other phenomenons that we've seen, there was a guy that was with the local television station who is represented as a computer expert, and he went on the air the next day to say, oh, look, I got layers, too, so the birth certificate has to be real. And what he actually did, Sheriff Joe, was prove the point of the cold case posse, because he got something like 45 layers, which was the exact number of layers that we saw with the control document. And in those videos, we said the control document is what a document should have done. And it was obvious to me that he hadn't really had time to take in all the videos, but there's been a rush on the part of some people. A guy at National Review did the same thing, Sheriff Joe, where he said, oh, look, I got layers, so the document's real. It seems to me that there are some pretty weak attempts to refute the evidence that's out there by people who are being recognized as experts, but that's only a few people. What I'm wondering is why hasn't Adobe Software chimed in on this? Why hasn't Microsoft chimed in on this? The word on the street is they've got too many big government contracts to take a chance on upsetting the current administration. Do you find it odd that no major software developing companies have come forward to take a position either way?
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me. Where's all the politicians? Have you seen anybody come forward supporting me? I haven't seen it. It's like, like I'm poison right now. But they have one problem, because I do have credibility with my background and what I've done as sheriff for 20 years, and I'm going to continue to do it. So that's the way it is. But it's just not those corporations you're talking about. Where are the politicians? Where's the media? Talking about they're going after Jerry Corsi and Mike Zullo for doing the press conference. I guess before they wrote a little book or something. I think they called it a book. It was really like a press release, knowing that nobody would cover this. So at least through different areas, we can get the message out, because we knew. That's why we filmed this thing for an hour and a half, knowing that the media would not cover it. And I guess they knew it was going to be covered. Maybe they were afraid to ask any questions, knowing that everything would be, on that video. So I don't know. I'm just shocked.
I have to ask you, I know you've been doing back-to-back interviews since the press conference took place, but I'm not seeing a major splash in the national media. What types of media are interested? Is it people like me, people with internet radio shows, internet blogs? Is that where the buzz is happening on this?
The only people who don't want to disclose the truth are people with something to hide.